Hi again. This is Thursday and we're going to talk about water again, and I have a couple of little experiments I'm going to show you because I don't really know exactly how to talk to you and walk you through. I need a cameraman. If I had a cameraman, that'd be great. So if you were here, we could do this together. But I've kind of prepared it and it's kind of a little bit strange. I'm going to start with showing you a mirror, and it's just a plain old mirror, and it's pretty shiny there. You can kind of see, okay? And I'm going to hold it over a pot of hot water, okay? And the water's been on the stove, so it's boiling, so it's hot, so you wouldn't want to put your fingers in it. And you can kind of see maybe that now the mirror has captured the water vapor. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's the vapor, the water that's liquid on the inside, has turned from being solid water, into this vapor, and it's vanishing. And it's vanishing everywhere in this room, but I caught it on my mirror. So I put my mirror on the top, and I caught the water vapor just a little bit. There you are. There's the water vapor, and it's caught on my mirror. Now, if I leave my mirror for a while, and I'll show you maybe later on, the mirror is going to clear up because the water vapor is constantly moving. It's not staying right there. It's going to evaporate. It's going to disappear off of my mirror. And maybe you can see a little bit of it there, how it's disappearing. Okay. And it's evaporating, just like it's evaporating out of here. So if I were to take a teaspoon of water and put it on your desk at school and come back the next day, the water wouldn't be there. Where'd it go? If no one touched it, no one was in the classroom, the water that would have been on your desk is gone. It disappears. It evaporates is the fancy word. And that's what's happening to this water right here. I put the water in there and boiled it. If I keep boiling it on my stove, pretty soon there won't be any water there, and it'll all vanish into the air. Now, you can't see it. You can't see the water here, but the water is there. There's my mirror, and it's almost all evaporated except just in the very edge right there. All right, can you kind of see that? Water. It's one of those things that can be solid. They call it solid. That means you can feel it. It can be frozen and turned into really solid. It can be liquid, like our water that we wash our hands with. And it can be a vapor. Isn't that interesting? It can be all three things: a solid, a liquid, and a vapor. Water, it's an amazing thing. When God created it, He knew exactly what He was doing. He made it so that it was so useful in many different forms. For our experiment today, I want you to take just a little glass of water, and Mommy will have to help you with some of this, but a little glass of water and some salt, and there's my salt, and I'm just going to put it in a teaspoon. I'm going to put it in I'll just put in this little teaspoon here. Okay, so you just pour some salt in, and usually about a teaspoon or so, okay? And you're just going to put it in your glass, and you're just going to stir it up. And now the salt is dissolving into the water. Dissolve means it's being broken up, it's being melted, so to speak, in our water. It's not hot water, but it's being mixed in, combined with our water. And you can see the water's not nearly as clean now. It's all full of salt. You know, you can't drink salt water. You can drink a little, and you'll be okay, but you cannot drink it for very long because your body does not like salt water. And it will make you sick, and then you'll end up throwing up, and that's not fun. So your water has to be pure. But there's a way to make your water pure, even if it has salt in it. Even if you were to take ocean water and put it in a glass, you can make it pure. And the way you do that is by taking this water, this salty water, lick it. Okay? It's salty, isn't it? Yeah, exactly. And you can pour it into your little pot, okay, just like that. Okay, and then Mommy can put this on the stove, and she can boil it. And she can boil and boil and boil. And all of that fresh water, all of the water that's evaporated, is going to be pure. And if you could catch it and lick it, it would taste wonderful. And the only thing that's going to be left behind is that the salt is going to be left behind. The salt that was all mixed up in here in the glass that we saw, that made the water look like it was all kind of murky. Okay, when you pour it into your pot and boil it, the water disappears, but the salt is left. And this is just salt, just like you could use on your, your piece of meat or your potatoes or whatever. It's just salt. See, so you can see my fingerprints in there. Shrink. It's just salt, and it's usable again. But we took all the salt out of the water, and it disappeared into the air. Remember yesterday I told you that when God created the water, He only had to do it one time, and we've been using the same water ever since, and it's just been recycled over and over. Well, how could that even be? It's because of the water cycle. Okay? The water it comes down from heaven, doesn't it? In rain, in snow, sleet, hail. Okay, so it comes down out of the heavens, okay, and it flows along. And as it flows along, it also evaporates, and all of our oceans, all of our lakes, all of the rivers, all of that water is slowly evaporating. Yes, some of it's still flowing, but it is evaporating, and as it flows, it finally evaporates. And if there gets so much water in the sky, in the air, it forms clouds, and that's called condensation. So it forms clouds, and the clouds, they keep filling up with water and water because of all the evaporation, and pretty soon they get heavy and heavier and heavier, and guess what? They drop out all of their water, and there we are again, and it goes around and around and around. So the water cycle is evaporation, condensation, precipitation. That's the water cycle. So all water evaporates, whether it's in a pond, whether it's in a mud puddle, whether it's water on a street, all water is constantly evaporating. It looks like it's not doing anything, it's staying there, but just like the water on your desk in your classroom. Okay? You were home sleeping, but what was it doing? It was evaporating. Evaporation, that means it was turning into a vapor. It was going from a liquid into a vapor. Evaporation, vapor into a vapor. So now it's into, and a vapor is something, it's like air. Air is a vapor. You can't see it. I mean, between me and this camera, there's all kinds of air. Oxygen and hydrogen, not hydrogen, but nitrogen. Okay, carbon dioxide. It's in the air, but we can't see it. Okay? That's what happens to the water. It comes up and it evaporates. It turns into a vapor. And when there's so much vapor in the air, it gets together and it forms clouds. And there's our cloud there. So it's evaporation, condensation. Okay? Condensing, getting to get all the water molecules, all the little pieces of water getting together. And that's what happened on my mirror here. All the water molecules got together and they condensed on my mirror. And the colder my mirror, the more the water molecules would condense. Okay, so it would gather up on my mirror. Okay, and if I continually put more water and more steam on it, more evaporated water, pretty soon you would see it trickle down my mirror, because there would be so much it couldn't hold itself, and it would fall down. So evaporation, condensation, And then when the cloud gets so heavy with evaporation, with all the water in there, it opens up and it all falls down. Precipitation. And when the water comes out of the sky, that's what it's called, precipitation. Aren't those fancy words? So, precipitation, it means water from the sky that falls down as rain, snow, sleet, hail. Those are forms of precipitation. So, evaporation, condensation, precipitation. That's the water cycle. All right, let me see if I can draw you a picture. Oh, maybe. Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay. Okay, so if this is my, if this is my water, okay, say this is the lake, okay? When the water is going up like that, it's called evaporation. And as it goes up, it turns into a cloud. The cloud is condensing. In other words, it's a gathering of all of the moisture in the air. And the wind blows the clouds, you know the wind is, and the cloud is blown this way, and pretty soon the cloud is so full, we ran out of room there, but the cloud is so full that it starts to drip, and it drips on the earth, and that is called precipitation. Evaporation, condensation, precipitation. And then what happens here? It makes little rivers, and it empties into the waters of the ocean, or maybe enters into the waters of a lake, and it continually is used over and over again. The cool part about water is that when it runs through all of the earth, it's cleaned. And it leaves all of the junk behind. It cleans itself, it cleans itself, it cleans itself. And when it's evaporating, remember, just like when we had our salt there, the icky part was left behind, but the clean part was taken up. So the clean part is all up here. So it's constantly clean. And when it comes out of the sky and hits the earth, it starts to clean itself until it repeats again. So when you take a drink of water, it could be Adam and Eve's water. Isn't that pretty amazing? And yet it's clean as can be because God cleaned it up. So just like we saw when we looked at the salt water, remember we put the salt in the water and put it in the pot, and we boiled it, and we all ended up with nothing but the salt, right? Right, okay. So the salt was left. All the grungy, gritty stuff was left. And the clean, all the stuff that I'm breathing right now, is the clean water that came out of the little pot. It's all clean water. It's in the air. It means the air is full of moisture. And it makes it easier for us to breathe. The more moist your air is, the easier it is to breathe. Just like probably when you were little guys and you had a really bad cold and you couldn't breathe so well at night. Remember, Mommy would put a little humidifier in your room and it would just bubble up water and make more moisture in the air. And it made it easier for you when you were a little guy to breathe. And so, Mommy knew what to do. She was putting more moisture in the air. So the moisture that's in the air in my house right now, makes it easier for me to breathe. And I'm not breathing grungy air because it's all cleaned up. I'm not breathing salt. Obviously, that would not be good for me. So I'm not breathing salt. I'm breathing this fresh air because God cleaned it all up in the process of evaporation. Now, if I were to put salt water on your desk at night and you go home and come back to school the next morning, guess what would be on your desk? Salt. And the water would be all gone. The water would evaporate and you'd have nothing but salt on your desk. If we ever get back to school, we'll have to try that experiment. Or maybe you can try it at home. Put some on your counter at night before you go to bed. Put a little salt water on your counter. Not much, just a little bit. And in the night, it will evaporate. Come back tomorrow morning and look and see where you put that salt water. What's going to be left? Nothing but the salt. Where'd the water go? It evaporated. Evaporation, condensation, precipitation. That's the water cycle. And that's when our Creator, our Heavenly Father, made this earth. He knew exactly what he was doing. He didn't have to go to the drawing room and figure it out again. It was perfect the first time. The first time. So that's the water cycle. In Mr. Corbin, he did a lot of discovering about elevations of their lakes and making a watering system for Spokane. And we learn about him because he was important in our history, not in the history of the world, but in our history of Spokane. He was an important man because he's the one that helped us realize that that this is a good area to live. And obviously it is a good area to live because here we are living in it, right? Right. And then we learned that about the aquifer, the big river underneath. Mr. Corbin did not know about that. That was discovered later, that there was this gigantic river, but it was a river of pure water, pure and clean, which is why we don't have to have a lot of chemicals in our water. Whereas if you live in big cities, they throw junk in their water. Fluoride is one of them, but they throw chlorine and stuff that so to make the water so that it's pure. But where we live, especially out here in the valley, we do not have to have anything added to our water because our water is already pure because of the beautiful aquifer that's underneath us. So it's a blessing that, hey, Mr. Corbin didn't know anything about, but you and I do, right? Right. All right, so those are our 2 science experiments today. See if you can try one of them tonight. If Mommy's got some time before you go to bed, put a little salt water on the counter and see if you can get that to work for you tomorrow morning. And don't put too much, just a little bit though. And see if she can put some salt in your glass, and not too much salt, but just a little bit, and just a little tiny bit of water is good. You'll kind of get the same idea. Put it in your pot, have Mommy put it on the stove, and it'll take probably 2 minutes, and it'll all the water will evaporate, and you'll be able to see all that steam come up. And if you look at that steam, you'll know that steam is pure. That steam is not polluted steam. It is pure water, but it's changed from a liquid into a vapor. And you want to try a mirror? If you've got a mirror at your house, put that in there, put that on top of the steam, and have Mommy show you, hey, look at that. I caught some of the water vapor as it was escaping. And at the very end, Mommy will hear it, and it'll be sputtering on the stove because all the water's gone, and there's going to be nothing left but the salt. So if you'd like to try that experiment at home, it's fun. So our Creator is wonderful. That's what we learned today. And we learned that the water cycle is evaporation, condensation, precipitation. That's the water cycle. Bye.